You're listening to AZ Sports with Matt and Rich. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to episode 2 of AZ Sports with Matt and Rich. I'm your host, Richard, and my co-host, Matt, the big wig here with his big collection of jerseys in the background. You want to tell me about those 2 new ones back there from last week that we didn't see previously?
So my order finally came in. It's only 2 months behind. It wasn't like Deke Slayer's, who had a 6-month delay on his number 7 Chikrin jersey. But I had to get a Capabianco. But more importantly, I can't believe they actually let me do this. I got a Peter Mueller white Kachina. I'm gonna wear that around more than I probably should. There's gonna be plenty of people that are like, "Who is Peter Mueller?" And I feel old. Don't worry. Then again, we were just talking before the show. I remember when McDoubles were $1, so it's fine. Yep. I can be old.
Yep, that is for sure. You said previously, before this, you were saying how you're gonna carbon date yourself with all these references, and I absolutely agree to that. We were also talking about how Little Caesars pizzas were $5 and you couldn't beat it, and it's still, even at the price range that it's at now, you still can't beat it. That's a damn good price. But since we're talking
darn good pizza.
Yeah, since we're talking about food, let's hop right into one of my subjects I have to talk about, which is that the Dbacks announced that they are going to be bringing in new food onto the arena, or to the stadium. Some of these names include Black Rock Coffee, Chick-fil-A, Creamily, I don't know how to say that, Scoopwell's Dough Bar, and Zoyo Neighborhood Yogurt. So just a couple names there, but pretty cool. A couple big names. And, I feel like so many places try to put in their own spin on a restaurant, but it's like not name brand and it doesn't end up being very good. So I'm kind of excited to see more name brands reach the arenas and stadiums.
I feel like it's mostly the Suns and Diamondbacks that get everyone. Like, yeah, I know, because Coyotes also had Papa John's for a while. I think the Cardinals still do. But it's mostly, you go to the ballpark, you go to the Footprint Center, still a terrible name, by the way. You can get, like, Streets of New York or whatever. And none of this is sponsored. We're basically, like, the large market version of Country Bumpkins here. Like, we're not used to actually getting name brand stuff, because we're the 5th largest city. We're still treated like a small market in 98% of everything we do.
Yep. Yeah, we get the great value brands. We're going to continue along with the Dbacks news. The Dbacks have gone 500 in preseason. That's pretty remarkable considering how they were heading last season. But let's see if they have something to build off of. What are your thoughts about that?
I don't really try to put too much stock into preseasons or spring trainings or anything like that, mainly because the same concept of like champion of the offseason types, where it's most of the people that are trying are the kids that are trying to earn roster spots or get a look, or maybe for baseball's case, they don't want to go all the way down to like single A ball, so they want to go to a higher level of competition. So I'm not going to put too much stock into that, but it is a good sign. And I also do like how it seems there might be some improvement from within, because they sure didn't do much on the free agent market. They did strengthen the bullpen. All right, the 8-9 innings should be better this year, significantly better, in fact. But still gotta be in the game in the 8th and 9th inning to throw your good pitchers out there.
Yeah, that's for sure. We have a couple extensions with the D-backs as well. Merrill Kelly getting a 2-year extension, and Ketel Marte, we talked about him, and then an hour later they got him to that extension. Ketel Marte got a 5-year, $76 million extension. What are your thoughts on those?
The Merrill Kelly, look, I know he wasn't born in Arizona, but he's a Valley boy at heart. He went to high school here, he went to college here, with ASU alum. And when he was announced to be signing here, I'm like, obviously he's a little bit older, 30 years old when he first signed as a free agent, but I'm like, it should be a pretty decent, depth pitcher. And he's been the most underrated. Note the context I'm using this, so no one gets that in context. He's the underrated MVP of the team. No one really gives him the proper credit. Obviously, D-backs fans are starting to give him more credit. But when it comes to like those under the radar type players, the guys that you don't really hear about, he's been phenomenal in terms of eating up some innings. Primarily, you want him at the 5 spot so you can transition from him to the top of the rotation. So with Bumgarner, Gallen, and whatnot, even though Gallen missed a lot of time last year, he's perfect for that. You can also put him up a little bit, but I prefer him right there at number 5. I think my brother-in-law had a really good point. If you want him at number 5, and he helps you transition over there. Pretty solid matchup, solid player, and I know I'm simping pretty hard, but I think it's time for a Merrill Kelly jersey. It's almost time.
All right. And then quick little brush over with Ketel Marte. We love him. We praised him in episode 1. We like him a lot. And I think they nailed it with that extension. 5 years, not too long, good money. I don't see that as a downside. I think that he's going to sell a lot of jerseys for them and make them happy with that extension for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And like I said, face of the franchise, you need to have that guy that the fans can rally around. And it. Primarily with him, look, I said it before, and I'm going to once again make sure I'm clear when I say this. When you see stupid money get thrown around, the first contract that came to mind was Fernando Tatis, not because I think Marte is as good as Tatis is, but because Marte would be our equivalent too, in terms of the best player on the team, an actual all-star elite level player. The money could have been ridiculously stupid, and the fact that he still gets paid, he makes his money, but it's not some ridiculous astronomical amount. I'm actually thinking that's a pretty good contract, and it should pay off pretty well. I guess it takes it right until 33, so right at the end of that prime, and also a team option for a 6th year on that contract in 2028. I have absolutely no complaints, unless he just goes down this year and never plays again, which I don't think it's that likely. But there's my disclosure there, my little bit of pessimism.
Yep. Let's talk a little bit about records here. The Suns are currently tied with, I believe it's 62 wins for most wins in a franchise season. They have 5 games left. 5 games left, and the last time that they approached 62 wins was back in 2004-2005. That's how long it's been since we've had a dominant Suns team. What do you think?
I'm excited.
Are we breaking that 62 win mark? You confident with that?
You know what? Allow me to be your great value brand, Stephen A. They will not. They are going to go on a skid because they're fools, they're failures, and they were never good to begin with. Obviously, I'm just messing around. Look, it's 5 games. They officially confirmed it's Jay Crowder, Chris Paul, and Devin Booker will not be playing today against Oklahoma City. That game kicks off, I think, 30 minutes before the Coyotes game, or right around the same time. They could beat Oklahoma City without them, and on top of that, the amount of the ridiculous records. I probably should start writing this stuff down as I'm kind of driving around listening to the radio. But the ridiculous amount of games they've won without key players. They've played most of the season without at least 2 or 3 of their main 4, 5, 6 guys. They're going to win at least one more game. The game against Memphis outplayed them. It is what it is. It happens. You're not going to win 82 games. I wasn't expecting winning 82 games. I don't think that has any implications for the playoffs just yet. So, yeah, you got 5 games left. I think they can easily win tonight. They'll break that record. If they don't, then maybe they are phonies. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I believe before Memphis beat them, I think they were on an 8-game winning streak or something like that. I know they were.
Yeah, it was 8 or 9 games. I think it capped out right around 9.
So, like, even if you look at that ratio, like an 8-to-1 ratio, that is insane. Like, the amount of
I'd kill
winning.
for that on the Coyotes.
Yeah,
I would kill for that.
that is a crazy ratio, and I'm excited. I think this season, if they don't win a championship, it'll be a disappointment. They are cruising on. They're firing on all cylinders, and they need to keep that momentum into the playoffs.
Allow me to cut you off there, you gorgeous imbecile, because the Phoenix Suns absolutely, there's no way in my mind, barring injuries or a team absolutely going off, that they wouldn't be able to get the job done this year. I am completely confident in this team. The culture they've built, having Monty Williams as a head coach, Chris Paul being the final piece they needed, Devin Booker playing at a borderline MVP pace. Excuse me. I'm just too excited right now. Look, I have all complete confidence in this team. But full disclosure, I had full confidence in the 2019 Rattlers, and they were undefeated up until the United Bowl. So,
yeah.
my opinion means nothing. I'm just a fat guy in an office.
Well, let's roll over to the Rattlers. They beat Duke City just recently here. Do you want to express some opinions on that win?
Well, yes, actually. First off, I am a little sad I did not get to watch that game. I was at the Sonic the Hedgehog 2 movie premiere. Oh. Then I went to a spring training game. They didn't have the drink I wanted, so I had to settle for a Mike's Hard. Once again, not sponsored. Got bored 3 innings in and went home.
Can be a sponsor.
But, I wasted that, didn't even drink half of the can. I was bored 3 innings in and just decided to go home. By the time I got home, the Rattlers game was over. They had won. I'm going to pull up the score. Obviously, I get really distracted when we do these, but the fact that a stat went around. So, over the first 3 games, they finally gave up points in the second half. Oh my God, they finally did it. 3 games in. 3 games in, 7 points allowed in the second half by that defense. That is how phenomenal that defense is played. And like I said last time I talked about Duke City is not a bad indoor football team. They just aren't. So, yeah, no, I got lots I want to talk about, but this week when I talk about them, it's going to be primarily numbers-based because I did not get to watch it as much as I'm kind of kicking myself in the tuchus for that.
Yeah, and that's pretty incredible, too, because like you were saying last week as well, indoor football is all based around the offense, right? It's more of an offensive type league, and to hold them to just 7 points, that's impressive. That's
in the
impressive.
Second half. That's the crunch time. That's the how many times have you seen elite defenses in the NFL the last drive or two just give up points they wouldn't earlier in the game because of exhaustion? That's just to kind of put it into context. 7 points allowed total in the second half of their first 3 games in a 3-0 start, and it took them 3 games to get to that first score allowed. Yeah, this team's rolling. They're playing different right now, and I'm excited to get to go to a couple more games. And I'm excited for my AZ Sports Guy jersey to show up. Give me a shipping confirmation.
Ooh.
Oh, I throw money around for jerseys. I feel stupid money. I get bored. Thank God I have to spend $400 on my car because what would I just do? Buy more jerseys or a stack of comics you see behind me? I got a problem.
Well, you talk about second half crunches. You bring me back to the PTSD moments of Aaron Rodgers when they were playing the Cardinals, and I want to move into the Cardinals with this offseason being quite a quiet one after losing Christian Kirk, Chandler Jones, and Chase Edmonds, and no big names really coming back. That is that's gonna hurt their stock for playoff bound. I feel like a lot of people are going to be a little bit more wary on punching that ticket for the Cardinals. What are you thinking?
Well, they shouldn't have sold playoff tickets before they punched their ticket. You never do that. It's stupid. I would rather buy a Rattlers ticket for a season that didn't exist in 2020 than buy a Cardinals playoff ticket that wouldn't happen. Look, the Cardinals, they're probably betting on, and I am getting this information primarily from the radio, with how they have not really gone after many free agents. I mean, there was that lineman from the Giants. I want to say it's Hernandez. It should be a pretty decent upgrade on that offensive line. I want to say he plays right guard, but if you do know that information that I don't know off the top of my head, please feel free to correct me in the comments below. But other than that slight upgrade, you're extending James Conner. Some people are a little wary about it being a 3-year contract. The way I see it, contracts in the NFL aren't real because how many of them can you just cut and you're done? It's away with. So sure, it's worth the risk to keep that guy around. And keeping Zach Ertz and Max Williams obviously at tight end. But other than that, it's been a lot of shedding talent. They weren't going to keep Chandler Jones. They weren't going to pay him. Personally, what he's getting paid in Vegas, I don't think he's going to be worth that moving forward. But he's probably going to be at least worth somewhere around there. So at least he got his bag, and at least he's not getting his bag here if he's not going to have the same level of production. But you also feel on every single defense or offensive play if you're a opposing lineman, excuse me. So he has that presence. That's what you're paying for at this point, I suppose. Still a good player. Don't get me wrong. I'm mostly just I don't want my teams to have bad contracts. So if a player's on the decline or getting ready to decline, get him out of here. I don't care. Make your money somewhere else. But they're pretty much going to be relying a lot on the draft, on kind of how things look at camp, development from within, and you could see something like the Suns where Cam Johnson's taking some pretty big steps this year. Devin Booker, like I said, continuing to take his steps and just how phenomenally he's playing. I think DeAndre Ayton even has gotten better. So you can look at that from the inside. But they also have not gone out of their way to grab anything that would improve any of the things that they not only had weaknesses at last year, but also have a loss so far. Chase Edmonds, I don't really see as that big of a loss. Most guys can fill his role. Good player, good guy from what I can tell, but he's pretty much your second, third down back. You're just trying to eat up yardage for the most part. You want that bigger James Conner in the red zone, but Chase Edmonds also did have success in the red zone, to be fair. So I don't see that as that big of a downgrade. A lot of guys can do that job, and probably for cheaper than what he's going to get paid in Miami. I don't know. I think the Cardinals probably aren't going to be that good this year unless a lot of things go right, and I don't know how many of those things are going to end up going right. So, I mean, just go to Rattlers games and watch a real football team. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I mean, when they went skidding into the playoffs like that, that's a real scary sign, and I agree that skid might continue, especially with all the off-season problems that we saw with he who shall not be named, who throws the football. He has stirred up a lot of drama behind this team, so we'll see what happens. It's a
unless he has an MVP season next year, unless he goes out there and like plays Aaron Rodgers type football and shuts me the hell up. I'm like, you know what? Colt McCoy is probably my quarterback next year.
Oh, all right.
I don't like trash talking if you can't back it up, but especially if a guy that's never really won in prime time, his only playoff game, he was terrible. Don't even give me the argument it was his first playoff game. Look at Joey Burrow. He took a franchise that everyone has seen as just irrelevant, Arizona Coyotes level even of the NFL, and took him to a Super Bowl. I don't want to hear anything about that. That was his moment. On top of that, he's never won a playoff clinching game. He's never even had really that great of a performance in a playoff clinching game. Usually it's mediocre, maybe a little bit better from what I can tell, what I remember last year at the very least, and it's just kind of, you have to prove it before you can start demanding money, especially when you still have 1 year left on your rookie contract, plus a team option, which I thought was kind of funny. The Cardinals we're going to exercise his fifth-year option to kind of mess with him, but apparently that's the quarterback moving forward. Well, go out there and make me look stupid, then you're my quarterback again. Until then, I'm going with Drew Powell of the Arizona Rattlers, and that's the only football team I acknowledge.
There you go. Well, Drew had almost pretty much an MVP season last season, right? If my memory serves
me. He won the MVP.
Yeah, he won the MVP.
He was the Indoor Football League MVP, so I'm like, that's my quarterback right there. I'm paying attention to that, man.
Oh, yeah. I just want to quickly bring up that the NFL draft is 1 month away, approximately. We have quite a few late-round picks in that draft. I don't know too much about NFL drafts, I'll be honest with you. There is way too much minor league football out there for me to pay too much attention on stock, so I trust a lot of what the prospect people, the smart ones above me, say. Is there anything that you want to say about that real quick, or we'll see it in a month?
Well, with how they haven't got anyone on at the wide receiver position, and AJ Green's gone, which in my opinion that's a good thing. Christian Kirk's gone, in my opinion, also a good thing because he doesn't know how to catch. Valley Boy or not, you gotta be able to consistently catch a football. Go make your bag in Jacksonville. You can drop all the balls there you want. They're gonna need a receiver. There are some pretty good receivers from what I can tell. And what I've heard on the radio, but just like every other year, I'm not going to get my hopes up because a couple of years ago I wanted Jerry Jeudy or DK Metcalf. That was never going to happen because we got Andy Isabella, the great, the one that every Cardinals fan loves. So pretty much get a receiver, get a young, tall, fast kid. I know they're going to need an edge rusher. Obviously, you can always get depth at defensive line. Maybe if you see a mid-round running back that could outplay Enu Benjamin, sure. But other than that, I don't really know what else to expect except for disappointment. If it's the Cardinals in drafting, there will be disappointment. There is some good stuff. Mostly disappointment, like going to a Coyotes game. And as you can tell, I love going to Coyotes games.
Well, let's continue on with that disappointment, and let's talk about a season-ending injury for the Coyotes that we had midway through this week, and that was Clayton Keller going leg first into the boards at full speed and breaking his right femur. Immediately, you could tell he was in excruciating pain. If you watch the broadcast, it went from a loud rumble, excitement to just dead air. People were terrified of the worst, and when he was down, you could tell he was crying. And hockey players, I don't care if you're big or small, they don't cry. They don't cry. And when you could see him crying, that was a rough sight.
I mean, obviously, my first reaction is there are plenty of players that cry, but I don't think I should be making a joke at this exact moment because, gonna be completely honest with you here, that was the first time this year that I can recall I chose to watch the Suns over the Coyotes, and seeing that replay, like kind of hearing about what was going on, then seeing the footage, I didn't even care the Suns won and tied their franchise record that night. I didn't care about the game. I didn't care they won. Win was out of the sails. I've actually been trying to avoid talking about this for as long as possible. Not because he's like my favorite player and oh my god, I witnessed something horrific, but just how hard that kid's worked. Back, a couple years ago, 2018-19, I always bring it up when I praise him. I made a video saying how I thought he was overrated because at the time I genuinely thought he was just an overrated player. And just the strides he's made in his two-way game, his efficient passing, his finishing ability. He's become every single thing anyone's ever said positively about him. He's become the MVP of this team. He earned a 30-goal season this year, and it was robbed. And yeah, it was he blew a tire. It happens, but the way it ended, it took the sails out, and I didn't care. I didn't feel like watching the Anaheim game. I don't know if I'm going to watch the Chicago game. I kind of just feel like the season's already over. Like, yeah. To me, that's how significant that was, and I apologize if I sound hyperbolic. It's just the best way to word it is if you don't have our current version of Shane Doan, what is the point of watching? Like, he is the heart and soul of the team. Like, yeah, we got King Louis, we got our memes, but yeah, we got the kids. Unique had a good game. You got some guys developing, but if you don't have that cornerstone, they're going to be right where they were, mediocre, and trying to get younger players to fill roles bigger than they're made for. So it bummed me out. I have literally nothing but nice things to say about Keller, at least for the last year and a half or so. And from my surface level, non expert knowledge, it sounds like it was a clean break, so it should heal more efficiently, at least a little more quickly. But the problem is with an injury like that, the team confirmed 4 to 6 months. If it's a femur, ESPN said it was a fractured bone, but Craig Morgan reported it's a femur. The problem is the bone may heal, and I hate to be the pessimist here. 50% of those injuries are the mental aspect because. Yep. One, he might never get his explosive speed back. He might. He's young enough. It should be able to heal fine. Like I said, from what I can tell, it was reported as if it was a clean break, so it should heal better. But it's even if he doesn't actively think about it, what if he's streaking down the side of the ice and just thinks about maybe blowing a tire and starts slowing down, or just it's going to be the mental aspect. And I would absolutely hate for his career to be derailed or Peter Muellered, I guess, because of one event that was out of his control. And
yep. Luckily, we've seen on social media that he's been positive about the whole thing. Just to show you how good of a guy he is and how much demand he's had in that locker room. When the game was over, Phil Kessel, the wily veteran Phil Kessel, didn't even go to the dressing room. He immediately went over to the medical area to find Clayton Keller and talk to him. You could kind of tell, from the behind the scenes and on the ice that they're good friends. Like, they were very good friends, and I think that both of them liking golf, definitely helps with that because they're both big golfies, and that's a hard one to see, a young kid like that. And like you were saying, he was the MVP of the team this season, right? Like, seeing how well he could play. And just to reiterate what you were saying, like, luckily it's not a joint. Joints are almost just death sentences for careers. It was a bone. What I heard too was that it was a clean break. So plates and screws will get you back on your feet, and it's just all about that mental recovery. Talking about mental recovery, let's talk about Troy Terry and how the Troy Terry Jay Beagle fight absolutely demolished the internet for a day or two, as the words that Tyson Nash put out there lives, let's just say, rent-free in all of social media right now, as they are very mad with him. Were you able to catch the drama about this, or?
I did catch the drama. No matter how many times I watched the replay of the play itself, I don't understand the context. Just the play in isolation. The context, but beyond like, oh, words were exchanged, which started the physical altercation. So I'm like, it just kind of looks like a standard hockey play. Then you get a little more context, especially from that broadcast, and just to kind of get it out of the way, because I've never been a fan of Tyson Nash. It also stems from stuff I've heard behind the scenes from people that talk to him behind the scenes, and it's just, I thought it was one of the most knuckle draggy, like ape, like just stupid things to say of, oh, you're gonna outplay me, skill wise, prepare to get punched in the face. That's not the exact quote, that's a paraphrase of the quote, but the fact that anyone would say, I think that's actually the problem with like old school grinder types, where you have no actual skill in hockey, and then you use that as an excuse to like punch a kid in the face. Kids like well, it was Zegras that ended up getting injured,
No,
or Troy Terry.
Yeah, Troy Terry, who is a 32
Because Zegras
goal
was the
scorer.
one who was angry about it. Because you have these young kids that's what grows the game. How skilled they are, how fast, and how just the handles, the wheels these kids got. That's what grows it. That's what gets people interested. That's the entertaining aspect. And obviously, if you trash talk, you crash the net, you spray the goalie with ice. These little unwritten rules that make logical sense. You're going to get a glove in the face. There's going to be some scrums. I hate the mindset that, oh, you're better than me, you're going to get punched in the face. And I also don't like Jay Beagle for one very petty reason. He's a fake number 83. They shouldn't have given Connor Garland's number away. There's my disclosure for that. I do believe in being fair, but I hate that mindset. I find that mindset disgusting. I do not mind sticking up for your teammates. I understand when you get frustrated, gloves go in the face, a couple guys start fighting. That is what it is. That's part of hockey. There's one argument that says, that's how you police yourselves. Other argument saying don't give up 5 goals. They're both completely valid. I think it's somewhere in the middle. But when it comes to aggression because of skill, not because of trash talk or an event, that's where my blood starts boiling, because I'm like, look, hockey's a great game, and I'm tired of people like that making us all look like knuckle dragging apes. Like, because we're not.
Yep.
And then the game's evolved, honestly.
Yeah, I had to sit quiet on this one, so I'm going to recap what had happened for those who don't know. Late in the third period, about 5 minutes left in the third period against Anaheim. Anaheim was up 5-0, absolutely just destroying a away game. This was in Arizona. And just to give a little bit of context, previously Trevor Zegras scored another Michigan lacrosse goal, and if you don't know what that is, essentially he puts it up on a stick and wraps it in just under between the corner of the bar, like right in here. And it was a beautiful play. I got to see this live, and I went, holy burp, that was incredible. I couldn't hate it one bit. I think that is really cool on the sport. And actually, matter of fact, I told my dad sitting next to me, I went, he just tried the Michigan about 3 minutes earlier, because he did. He was looking for it, and he went, nah, I'm not going to do it. And then he did it this time, and it was beautiful. But to go back to the quote that Tyson Nash said, he said, if you want to skill it up, be prepared to get punched in the mouth, or something fairly close to that. And I don't like that, and I feel like the internet is just going with Tyson Nash because they're mad and they know that the play itself was a clean play, and they just want to find whatever reason they can be mad about a young kid getting absolutely pummeled. And to be fair, like, it was one-sided. There's a reason that he served, I think it was a 5-minute major on the play, Jay Beagle, for absolutely pummeling this kid. There's a lot of things that went wrong in this situation. Nobody was perfect, and pretty much the internet is looking at this guy who, unfortunately, Tyson Nash made a career of being a grinder to stay alive in the NHL, so he knows exactly how to play, the reason why Jay Beagle did what he did. And It's unfortunate. I hope that Troy Terry recovers. I do feel bad. At the same time, I don't really like the quotes that we heard out of Trevor Zegras. He really was hyping up, Troy Terry and saying how this was unacceptable to do this to a superstar. Beagle didn't jump Troy Terry. Okay, like that. There needs to be some context here. Just to tell you guys about the play, you're up 5 goals with 5 minutes left in the third, and the puck is under the goaltender at the time, which was Josef Kozhinash. Vemelka got chased out, and essentially Trevor Zegras himself goes to poke at the goalie. Jay Beagle then proceeds to give him the spine corrector, shall we call it, have your stick and hit him right in the spine, the lower part of your spine, crack the spine. It wasn't a super hard one. Like, it was just enough to kind of shove him down. And then Zegras obviously fell. Terry, I think, didn't see how hard it was. He just saw his guy down. So Terry goes to jump on to Beagle. I think Terry even throws one punch, but it was gloved. And then that's when the wires crossed with Beagle, and he punched him hard enough to cut him, I think, on the first punch. And then once Terry, his head went down, he fed him like 4 or 5 more uppercuts. Not a good look. I don't think, obviously we know Beagle's not getting anything suspension-wise for it. It's unfortunate to see a superstar get hit like that, but at the same time, if you're a superstar, you probably shouldn't be jumping Jay Beagle or even throwing punches. You give him a shove back. You tell him, hey, that was unacceptable. There's plenty of ways to go about that. I don't think that what he did was the smartest idea. And also, if you're going to get punched and you're not willing to throw punches back, just go down. Like, we've seen it plenty of times. You get hit once, just go down. The refs are there to protect you. The second you're on the ice, they're going to protect you from receiving any more blows. I don't know if you saw the photos on Twitter afterwards of the damage. It did not look good. It was pretty bad. His eye was completely swollen, and all of this area was just cut up.
I didn't see the photos. I just saw what was Zegras's or not was it Zegras or Terry, his post game reaction. I recognized the stripes on the wall because I've been down by that locker room before. I understand his frustration, but it really came across like almost demanding special treatment. Like I said, all I saw was just like the out of context play. Then I heard Tyson Nash's audio, which I've already explained why I heavily disagree with Tyson Nash's mindset, and then that. So it's a lot of out of context stuff, but I at least can gather enough of a picture to be like, yeah, you're upset. Well, also you can take it up with legal, like the league. You can put statements through. You can call your agent, call a meeting with the GM. There's plenty of things you can do. Or I'm like, I kind of feel like this. It's basically just going to make Arizona and Anaheim's next game very interesting. I think they played. Is it one more game this year, or is it next year when they play again?
I don't think it's till next year, but I don't think it's going to be as spicy. I think that Zegras and Terry will probably light up the Coyotes just because they'll be mad, but they're not going to have anybody really on this team from this year to next year. I don't think Beagle's coming back. I don't think a lot of the veterans are probably going to come back. They're going to run this operation to the bottom of the cap floor and then take on dead contracts to get above it. That would be my speculation. So yeah, you're going to see a lot of these veterans probably not on the team next year, and you're going to see a lot of opportunities for the young kids for it, because of that.
He's available.
Yeah.
Peter Mueller is a free agent. He's available. I've already shown people will buy a jersey for it. You want jersey sales.
Was he in the DL league? I think he's in the German league, or I don't know.
Last I saw, he went to the Liga. So he's playing there. Okay. I think Bonds is playing. Doesn't Denmark have a league? That's similar to Liga. And I know Bod's played in the Olympics. I don't know why they didn't just bring Bod's back. Bring Mueller and Bod's for a year. You need some jersey sales. Look. Just give me my nostalgia. The Dbacks might be able to get Justin Upton back. I just want my nostalgia from when I was young because McDoubles aren't $1 anymore.
Let's roll over to one game suspension that was handed out in that same game to Nick Ritchie on the play. Essentially, they were against the board. Shattenkirk, I think, threw a hit at him or something like that. He whacked him on the back of the numbers, and then I think he kind of lightly tapped against the side of his neck. Not acceptable. I think a one-game suspension is perfectly fine for that. I like Ritchie, and I like that he plays with that edge. It's just learning how to not go over that edge, obviously. Once again, they're getting blown out 5-0, so I can understand why you'd be mad and, fighty and standoffish. But one game's...
Yeah. Like you just said, I get it. I understand why he would be, on edge there. I understand why he would. I even like the mindset of not giving up. Like, you throw a couple extra hits, not illegal hits, but like you're down bad in the game. You throw a couple shoulders around. You show that, hey, we're not giving up. Just because you won the game. I like that mindset. He still has to know how to be smart and not. No matter what, you're in full control of your stick, and you got to keep your stick primarily down. You don't want it up that high, and you shouldn't. Even if it was only a tap, you shouldn't be hitting anyone nowhere near the neck or the head area. So maybe a 2-game suspension would have been fine, but 1 or 2 games I think is accurate. I think that's acceptable. And it was a stupid play he shouldn't have done.
Yep. Phil Kessel, all alone now with the active Ironman streak as of yesterday. Coyote alumni Keith Yandel, who was at, I believe, 980-something.
989. He was 11 games away.
11 games away. So they had the games to get him over 1,000, and they cut it short. They neutered him on that, which was brutal to see. To be fair, previously in this offseason, he was bought out by Florida because they had no interest in playing him. So he was going to lose the Ironman streak this offseason. Philly picked him up to try to continue that Ironman streak. I just don't know why, if you're going to pick up a guy, they're out of the playoffs. They're mathematically eliminated, and they drop him out of the lineup because of their reasoning being, we want to try out some kids. I don't get it. Like, that's a special thing for a guy to hit 1,000 Ironman game streak, and you could have the good what's the word? Good
karma, the good PR,
the good karma. Yeah. You could look like the good guy, showing that, hey, we got him to 1,000, and then he leaves in the offseason, probably loses it in the offseason, but you could be that team that was like, hey, we got the 82 games off of our team, and he was able to hit 1,000. Yeah, that's a real rough look, especially this late in the season. But now, going back to the Coyotes, Kessel is now all alone with the active Ironman streak, and he will not hit 1,000 until next year. So he'll have to be able to sign a contract somewhere, which I think he will. I think he'll be able to hit it. But a big blow to the Ironman streak community yesterday.
I think that's actually a good thing, and not just to be a contrarian, because my feelings on it with Kessel, his first year here, you can clearly
bring out
tell
the contrarian. Hot takes.
Not contrarian, a genuine opinion. It's Kessel's first year here. I was excited to have him here, him and Taylor Hall. And Kessel, you can clearly tell he got injured at some point. I want to say it was around the second month of the season, because in training camp, he was skating faster than I thought that man could move. And he had a pretty good start to the year. But you could tell he got injured and just kept playing through it. Not in the admirable, I respect guys that want to try to push through it. I don't think they should be, but that's just because it's to avoid longer term things. And I'm one of those people where I would rather sit a guy for a game or two than risk him being out 2 months later. So that's just the kind of person I am.
Yeah.
So you can clearly tell he was injured, and it was actively hurting the team, and the team was already injured to hell, and this team already, was looking to try to get into a wild card spot at that point. And I was like, okay, look, you need to bench Kessel. Never did. And then turns out he actually asked for a trade after that, despite the fact that his poor play and taking his trade value was entirely his own fault. I hate how egotistical it makes people, because I'm an Iron Man, I have to play. He literally played one shift and then went home to go for the birth of his child, which obviously you want the guy there for the birth of his child, but was it really like worth one shift and then your team had to play shorthanded the rest of the game just because you want to keep a fake streak going? It's always about guys playing injured when they shouldn't be, actively hurting the team in the process just because they want to feed their own ego. And Keith Yandle has not been a good defenseman for a couple of years. I said it when Florida, was originally going to bench him. They're talking about benching him, and I was like, if he's not that good anymore, he bench him. Oh well, he had 20 goals last year. Oh, he's still playing great. You know nothing. I'm like, he's a defenseman. He's not a winger. He's not playing wing. He's not playing center. He's a defenseman. He needs to defend first. If he can't defend, if he's responsible for 2 or 3 goals against the night, what's the one goal mean anything to you that he's going to score for you? So if he's not playing well, he's not coming back next year. Philadelphia needs to know what they got in their farm system. Those are games that Keith Yandle is not owed, that a young kid could have their chance to get some valuable ice time, adjust to the NHL game, and actually get their shot. And I don't look at the Red Wings when they were trying to extend their playoff streak and how much they would just try to bury their kids in the minors. Look at Rick Tocchet and John Chaika. They get veterans up, and guys like Kyle Capabianco. You saw actual stalling out of development because you had him in the minors too long. We could have had Michael Bunting up a year or two earlier, and we could have had similar results to what he had. I'm not going to say the numbers he's playing with Austin Matthews, but the numbers he had last year with us. This mindset of just because they're a veteran, they deserve the ice time, not because they are currently still playing well, but because they are a veteran, I think is a really stupid mindset. And Ironman streaks as a whole really are just about ego, not team, not accomplishment, just ego. And I don't mind them benching him because in all reality, he should have been benched a year ago. He signed with Philadelphia because they thought they were going to be a playoff team and they thought Keith Yandle was going to help him. And as someone who watched Keith Yandle for years and has very little things nice to say about that man's on-ice performance, don't know him as a person, could be a great guy. Everyone says he's a great guy. But on-ice performance, especially on the defensive end specifically, yeah, no, I don't see an issue with it. I do see the optics are bad. I can completely agree with you there because, well, you're already out of the playoffs. Why don't you bench somebody else? I can completely agree with that point as well because there are legitimate arguments on both sides. But me personally, you're not owed anything in this league, and I don't understand why people are as mad as they are. Again, annoyed, sure. That would have been a cool thing for everyone to see live in our lifetimes. 1,000 games in a row would have been great. You got to earn it. Not a single game in this National Hockey League is owed to anyone.
All right. Well, I definitely disagree. If you're out of the season, I think that you should absolutely play him. But I get what you're talking about with bringing young kids in. At the same time, how many other guys on that roster are even like good to play, right? They brought in, I think, who was it? Ekholm, maybe? It was one of the Nashville
I know they got Ristolainen from Buffalo, and they extended him despite he hasn't had that great of a year.
Yeah, I'm saying, like, if you're like out of it, I feel like you got to let the Iron Man streak go, but it is what it is now. I mean, he still sits all alone at number 1. Kessel is roaring up behind him, and we do expect to see Kessel probably outshine him. Still finishing off his career with at least currently number 1, potentially going to be number 2 Iron Man streak. I don't think we're going to see that be broke for a long time. I'll be honest. With how fast this game is, look at Clayton Keller as a perfect example.
I was just going to say Kells. I was just going to say Kells. You said the words right out of my mouth. Like he was other than Brent Burns, who's not going to play that long. He was at like 3 something. Like,
yeah,
and that was the next he was like I think he was 6 or 7 of active. That's how big the gap is. And guys like Brent Burns are not going to play another like 5 seasons. So Brent Burns isn't going to get there. So I looked at that, and as messed up as it's going to sound, because obviously I try to turn everything into a joke. I don't know if it's a defense mechanism or not, but the first thing when I just saw the text, not the actual injury, just the text that Clayton Keller is out for the game or whatever, I was like, well, there goes the Iron Man streak. Yeah, that was the first thought I had, and I'm like, Kells is a guy that plays with finesse. He doesn't go into the boards. He doesn't, get into dust-ups. Every now and again, he'll throw a glove here or there, like in a net scrum, but it's seldom he does that. And that was the kid I thought was going to have the next like long Ironman streak. And as you were just saying, with the speed of the game, you never know at that point. And it is still a phenomenal accomplishment. Frustrations aside with Yandel and Kessel, respectively, they still have achieved something phenomenal with where they're at in that Ironman streak because you don't see that. Not only do we not see that every day, but you're not going to see that every 5 years, every decade, even. It is still ridiculous.
Do you think Phil Kessel's a Hall of Famer?
I
Two
mean, he
cups.
probably has the raw stats to justify it. Plus, doesn't he have a couple personal awards and then, of course, the two Stanley Cups? So I mean, he probably
Yeah,
has just the raw numbers that a guy like Shane Doan will never have, even though Shane Doan has all the personality and leadership that Phil Kessel will never have. Just saying.
I think if the Coyotes can come out of the hole that they're in as a organization, just in general, they find stability in Tempe. They find success with all this young drafting. I could absolutely see. I don't know what I just said there. I could absolutely see Shane Doan going in maybe as a builder. He built the franchise. He kept them alive here in Arizona. I could see him making the Hall of Fame. It wouldn't be like a first ballot or anything like that. This would be a guy that you'd put in, later on in his life, maybe when he's in his 10 years from now or whatever, as like a guy who helps keep Arizona alive and potentially can, they can pull themselves out of this crap hole that they're in. Speaking of crap holes, Tempe's crap hole that they're trying to hand off to the Coyotes, quite literally. It's a what do you call it? It's an area for just dumping landfill essentially,
Yeah,
but
wasn't it like a landfill?
it's not exactly a landfill. It's like a recycling landfill.
Hmm.
That project is coming up next week. We don't know if the vote will be happening, but they will definitely at least be speaking about it, which is good news for the Coyotes. I can absolutely see this working out for them, and I really hope that they can get this deal done because that is a really good location right on the edge of Tempe Town Lake, and that whole area along the river is just getting sky rise, high rise, up and up and up. So I think that is a good place to put the project. I think we talked about this a little bit last week.
We did, and now that we're a week away from it being officially discussed again, because all the last reports are saying that they didn't have the political capital to get it done. This move might make it. This move will help. I meant everything I said last week, where I'm very confident it still goes through. But the pessimist in me, that terrified kid that was there for the '09 bankruptcy, that was there for the years of looming, they might leave, they might not afterwards. I'm not gonna lie. Now that there's an actual date that it's on the agenda, I'm terrified. Like, even though I have all the confidence they've done the work, they've invested the money to make that an appealing offer and an appealing project, I'm still absolutely terrified because until all the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted, this team is still technically at risk of a relocation. And I can make all the memes about Ottawa that I want. It's not going to change the fact that until that ink is on paper, we have a yes, do it. They break ground. We see the this building going up. Till all that happens, man, it's going to be probably one of the most stressful, looming things in the background of any Coyotes fan because if I can keep myself distracted with a Rattlers game, a Sonic 2 premiere, a Ghost Rider comic book, I can keep it distracted. But then when you're sitting there in the middle of the night and you can't sleep and you're like, that's tomorrow. They're going to be talking about this arena. That's 3 days
Yep.
from now. They're going to be talking about this arena. Oh, that first meeting didn't go. Did it go as well as I like it to go? This is going to be probably one of the most stressful periods for a fan base that has already had to just deal with more. Honestly, even though I still have some criticisms about Coyotes fans in terms of who they're loyal to, Mike Smith, Antti Ranta being the two biggest examples that I can come up with at the top of my head, you cannot deny the passion. You cannot deny that despite any other fan would have ditched this team long ago, and the fact that there is still this weird underground, hardcore community, similar to the Capybara fandom. If you don't know what that is, Google it. You're going to be in for a treat of memes. But the fact that it's there and it's still solid, and there's so much passion there, even more passion than I originally thought. Growing up in this community, they don't deserve the stress that we're all going to be going through for at least the next probably month and a half, because I'm assuming votes are going to take slow. They're going to take time before, like, when it's first on the agenda. Oh, what about this? Okay, we'll come back next week and then they'll discuss whatever. I'm just going to assume between 30 and 90 days after this original being on the agenda is when the actual vote takes place, and I'm
Yeah.
going to be terrified the entire time.
Yeah, that is for sure. There's some good news to pull out of the situation. The city of Tempe put in a bid for that landfill land. Nobody else expressed interest except for the Coyotes. So that is something that's positive. With what you're seeing with all the billion-dollar projects that they're putting up right there, I think they want to move quickly and start to develop something special down in that Tempe Town Lake area. So I definitely do see that being a positive note to it. The biggest scare to me is not whether it does or doesn't get accepted. The biggest scare to me is going to be the financial side of it. We see a lot of arenas and stuff like that. Until you get the building built, there's no certainty. They say, oh, until you get the first shovel in the ground. That's not even the case either. We've seen a lot of projects, they end up getting over budget halfway through the project, and they end up having to pull out. So it is going to be very worrying, but I think that what we're seeing is good, and hopefully we can see the light at the end of the tunnel that does not involve Houston and involves Tempe. And sorry, Quebec, it's not going to happen. You're not getting a team. I don't even think they'll put Ottawa in Quebec.
I'd say Houston can have it under one context and one context only, and it has to be this very specific scenario. All right, it's midnight. All right, the vote deadline is 12:01. And right there, the city of Tempe is getting ready to vote yes. And right as that vote is yes, there's also another vote. It's a NHL vote to approve the relocation of the Ottawa Senators to Houston, so that way the internet can explode. It would explode. That is the only scenario in which I support Houston hockey. Not because I dislike Ottawa. I actually have plenty of Ottawa Senators fans. This kid that I basically he's 19, that I basically consider my younger brother, is a big Ottawa fan. It doesn't matter. That's the one context that I'm okay with the Houston team, and even then, I don't want to see any other teams relocate.
Yeah, I hate the thought of relocation, and I know for Ottawa they have the similar complaints that we do with their building, and that's really rough. I just don't see how we're going to get rid of such a well-known place like Ottawa, being the capital of Canada, right? Like that's a big icon, and to lose them, that would be really rough. And if they were to relocate to Houston, that would be crazy, because that would mean that we'd have two less teams in the East. So we could see maybe a expansion team in Ottawa, but I don't know if we're going to keep expanding. Like, how many more teams does hockey need before we run out of talent for hockey? Because there is not a lot of leagues, minor leagues, for picking up good kids. But I don't know. We'll see.
I mean, look, to be fair, all right, and I know this is just mostly half meme, half just kind of shit posting, but when you look at Ottawa, they have the exact same complaints as the Coyotes, and there are, again, a hardcore fan base there. I'm never going to doubt the fan base. But how come whenever we talk about Ottawa versus Arizona, the exact same scenario, it's far out, teams usually bad. For Ottawa, it's actually worse, because not only are ticket prices higher, they couldn't even sell out in Eastern Conference Finals, yet Arizona has to be the main problem. Arizona can be a problem without it having to be the end-all, be-all. How come whenever we're talking about the Senators, we're allowed to say all these things? When it's the Coyotes, it just doesn't work in Arizona. Like I
Yeah.
just I don't understand why that has to be the specific conversation every time, which is one of the main reasons why I don't mind focusing on Ottawa because number one, they're not moving, so I can poke all the fun I want. I don't think their fans are actually at any risk of losing their team. But number two, they are essentially the Coyotes of Canada, and the worst part, they play for the capital of Canada. We don't
Yeah.
even play for the capital of the U.S.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a great saying that I have, and it really does speak true to how Canadians think. It's when Ottawa fans don't show up to the games, it's that Canadians are voting with their wallets on what they do and don't want to see. But when Arizonans don't show up to games, it's, oh, they just don't have any fans. And that's nowhere far from the truth, as you were just saying. To give context of what you're talking about, in the Eastern Conference Finals against Pittsburgh, which went to Game 7, that was a pretty good bout of a playoff. In that game, they ended up tarping off over, I think it was 1,000 seats at the nosebleeds in the very back because they just couldn't sell the tickets. They didn't give them away; they just couldn't sell them, so they just tarped them off. Like, how crazy is that? We don't see that here in Arizona. We don't tarp off seats. We can sell stuff. It's just when all of your fans are in the eastern part of Arizona and your building is in the western part of Arizona, hard for people to get up and go to a game and waste an hour of their time driving one direction to watch them lose and then drive an hour back, right? It's much more feasible when you are 10 minutes away. People are like, yeah, we're going to go watch them lose and get drunk. Like, people are more willing to do that.
People just don't realize, and I will not stop screaming about this until this finally enters the lexicon. Like that, remember that 3,800 seat thing that you mentioned that you were wondering why the hell that is the number that keeps getting thrown around, and I said it's just the lowest of the projected. I saw another smooth brain throw that in the comment section on Twitter. I forgot the context, but it's like, oh, and Arizona plays in a 3,800 seat bar, and that's not the problem. Like, it's not 3,800 seats, but whatever, man. You go off. But what people really just refuse to acknowledge and understand is the West Valley is a bedroom community. Everyone works in the East. I am lucky that I get to work further west, but I'm also in a very specific location where it's semi-feasible and I get to avoid traffic. When I'm coming on the 10 to go home, I see the westbound is packed. Everyone
Yeah.
is heading west to go home, heading west to go to California if it's a weekend, heading west to go wherever. The East Valley is where everyone they work. They do most of their schmall type shopping. I guess is the best way to say it. If you want to go like mini golfing, stuff like that. The Top Golf's doing pretty well in Glendale, but most people go to the Top Golf that's over at Scottsdale. Scottsdale is the place to be. Tempe is the place to be. Parts of Phoenix, not normally downtown, surprisingly, but parts of Phoenix are the place to be. You're not going, hey, you know what? I want to go to Buckeye, Arizona to go do my clubbing. I want to go to Peoria, Arizona.
Even wanting to go to Westgate, right? Like, people are nervous of Westgate. We had a shooting last year, and we just had another shooting
at Tanger, last week.
Last week, like it's a scary place. It's real sketchy, and they really need to clean that up. I really hope Glendale does, because I don't dislike Westgate. I think it looks pretty. It overall looks pretty, but the quality that is inside for security and stuff like that is not good enough. And they definitely are going to need to work on that to make sure that stays alive, especially as the Coyotes are going to be leaving this year. To go back on what you're talking about with the drive, my friend a couple years back literally lived a quarter mile north of the arena, and he made the drive all the way to what was called Sunsplash here, which is right next to Chandler, I think it is. It's like a straight shot on the freeway. His work was right next to Sunsplash, and he told me that his commute in the morning was an hour and a half just to go all the way over there, because like you were talking about with it, Glendale being that's where people live, and then all the jobs are back in the east. Where do you want your building? Do you want your building like in that smaller community, or do you want your building in the big bustling, thriving market? Like, kind of where you want it to be.
On
And
top of that, if it's a 7 o'clock start, you're going east. You're going to get traffic. Sure, some game day traffic, some traffic of people having stuff to do in the East Valley. You're not going to get the type of traffic you're getting everyone coming home. So no matter what, you're still going to look at that and be like, well, on top of that, they got the new 202 extension that goes more out to the West Valley. There are way more ways to make it more efficient to get to the East Valley now than there is to get to the West Valley. So I'm like, look, what's the number one rule of real estate? Location, location, location. But if it's Arizona, it's not location. It's a lack of a market, apparently, despite the fact that I've seen that building packed. Even though they've never turned a profit, poor management can take big money and make it not money. They can make it. They can put it in the red by just managing it poorly.
Yep. Well, I think that is all the topics that we have for today. We have just hit roughly around the 1 hour mark. Is there any closing words that you want to toss out into the ether, or?
You know what? Yeah, I got a couple.
Oh, let's hear them.
Remember, boys. I need you to go to the snake pit. You need to go to the snake pit and rise for your Rattlers. That's all I got for you.
You got cut off. Let's hear another rise, but let's hear another one here. I think there's a noise gate or something. It's cutting you off.
Rise for your Rattlers.
There you go. For sure. Yeah, and that's downtown. That's not in Glendale. So let's make the Rattlers successful. Come on now.
I mean, they're already successful, but come on, a little under 8,000 people for the home opener this year. Come on, they average usually 10,000 plus. They average just a little bit under what the Coyotes are averaging this year normally. Get them back up. We gotta pump up them numbers, boys, because they're 3-0, 3-0. The Cardinals aren't going to be 3-0 next year. The Suns were in 3-0 this year. The Coyotes sure as hell were in 3-0 this year, and the Dbacks won't be 3-0 this year. Come on.
All right. Well, I think that's it for episode 2 of AZ Sports with Matt and Rich. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to give us a like and a follow and subscribe on whatever platform you are on, because we're going to be here for a little bit, and you're going to be hearing us every single week. So thank you so much for watching. We'll see you later.